Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Commander Pavel, the new upcoming ML5. But before we get started, a word from our sponsors today, Amazon Coins. As you may or may not know, Amazon Coins is a digital currency that you can use for in-game purchases in Epic 7 or any other apps found in the Amazon Appstore. Saving up to 20% off on purchase for Epic 7 could be huge, especially if you are just a couple mystics short away from obtaining Commander Pavel himself, which, let's be real, his S3 animation is the real deal. Amazon coins are currently available in the US, UK, Germany, France, Japan, Italy, Spain, and Australia. Use my link found in the description below to support me and the channel while getting these great discounts on your next in-game purchase. The link will also provide you step-by-step instructions on getting the Amazon App Store and Epic 7 installed on your device. Now, let's talk about ML Pavel, Commander Pavel. He looks freaking fantastic, man. I haven't had this amount of excitement for a husbando since I think Last Rider Crow, which I think Last Rider Crow honestly looks really good. And for when he was released, he was like super awesome, really strong. And I actually think that ML Pavel is stealing the show. Like, comparing to the FMA heroes, I really think that he's stealing the show, and not just for cleavers. I don't believe it's just for cleavers, although I think cleavers will really love him because he's kind of like what cleavers need to make sure that someone who is bulking down too hard still gets one-shotted. All right, so ML Pavel, this is some of the illustration work that we saw actually a couple months ago when they showed the hype video, which is why we predicted like, oh, you know, ML Vivian was coming out and then ML Pavel maybe shortly after, which is we're right on track. And I think unless Lua is an ML5, I think we're out of ML5s previewed from last time. But as I'm making this recording, the Epic 7 World Championship tournament is going to end in a week or two, and so therefore I believe we're gonna get a preview of like the anniversary stuff, or rather what's coming in the new future, and which maybe we will get the preview of some ML5s that we're all been waiting for, maybe ML Kayron, Ludwig, or you know, ML Bologna or something like that. But ML Pavel looks really awesome, and I did commentate on that when his original video, again in that montage hype trailer thing, was released. And again, these are some of the screenshots that we were previewed to. Commander Pavel is a light ranger, he's Taurus, which again, just like Edward Elric for the FMA collab, seems like a new star sign introduced, and this is really how Epic 7 is going to get through this 10-year plan, keeping some hero kits, or rather stat lines, hidden behind the wall where they're not released. You can't compare it to anyone else, so it's like a total surprise, I suppose. Although I will say that outside of his attack being really high and speed being pretty decent and 23% crit rate, it feels like they could have just gone with any other ranger and just gave him like some kind of attack passive, right? Like, why assign a new star sign to this? But regardless, it is a welcome addition to the ranger family. His attack, like I said, is pretty high, 1327. I was looking in the heroes journal just to see and compare which rangers would actually have this amount of attack, and I do believe that he has the highest attack outside of Summertime Assyria, but Summertime Assyria does have her passive. So when you look in Summertime Assyria in the hero journal, her passive, the S2, giving her extra attack, is applied. So she has roughly like 1350 attack or something like that. But like using her as a base for your ML Pavel mock build will not work, since that I think that passive is like applied after all your stats and stuff. So you'll get like a kind of an overinflated version or number of the attack. This one again, 1327, and health being at 5138 and defense at 582. You know what, I don't really think the bulk would really matter on him too much. You know, people played with like bruiser strays, like, are we gonna get some bruiser Commander Pavel? I have my doubts, but I mean, whatever. I think things can work. All right, like, it can work, who knows, right? The imprint concentration at least is not crit rate this time, but he does have 23% innate, which already gives him some easier builds, and most likely if you're a cleaver, you'll probably run him on a crit rate set anyway, so you get some free gear score there. So the imprint concentration on the 18% attack is pretty high value on him, especially his attack being at 1327. So I think with the attack imprint, you were looking at almost 1500 attack, right? So very nice. Stat line I think is solid, and 109 speed for just like, let's say a DPS. He's not an opener. To any degree, I don't believe he's an opener because of how he works, but 109 is just very solid, so you can really emphasize more damage if need be, while still being able to maintain the speed that you might want. So 109, in my opinion, very nice. So the S2 obstacle elimination at the start of the first battle gains 60 fighting spirit. After an ally except the caster makes a critical hit, gains 20 fighting spirit, and when fighting spirit is full, consumes all fighting spirit to activate Be Gone. The effect is not activated by a counter attack, a dual attack, or an extra attack. So it has to be on the ally's turn, and it has to make a critical hit for this to set off. Now, I am glad that they chose to go with the fighting spirit route, because if they had gone with focus, which, you know what, like at this point there's focus and there's fighting spirit for both rangers and almost all classes. It used to be almost fighting spirit for only warriors, but now it's like everybody has every kind of mechanic. But one thing that may stand out to you right away is that if he was a focus based hero, Solitaria would put him in the grave, right? So like just having the fighting spirit is very beneficial. However, this does worry me a bit that if he has to function on the fighting spirit, you know, we'll have our meta with him for a while perhaps. And if he gets too out of control, then they're gonna release a solitary equivalent, but to suppress fighting spirit instead of focus, right? So since SSB was such a menace, they had to create Rowana, they had to create Last Rider Crowd, they had to create Solitaria, technically 3 picks to be able to counter one hero. And I'm saying the most consistent counter to that one hero would be those 3. But Commander Pavel, if he gets out of hand, if he is too powerful, then we can definitely see some kind of hero with a passive to just be like, on the field, fighting spirit is never gained, right? So rip to Landy, rip to Commander Pavel, and that was Solitaria's, like, Solitaria was like Bellion to me at that time. It's just like a universal mechanic, let's just shut it down. So anyways, but that being said, 60 fighting spirit to start, and you need 100 fighting spirit to do anything, so you technically need to make 2 critical hits. Now a lot of people have been theory crafting. I'm like, oh yeah, so you got to get the Eddas, you got to get the Athleticas. The Athletica was previewed in this, at least you see the Athletica face at the bottom left hand corner there. In this showcase, Athletica was previewed. We have other opener options. So if you're cleaver, Pavel will now be a very strong, ironically, Green Pavel will be a very strong initiator or enabler for Commander Pavel himself, which really, if you think about it, that's insane. Like, ton of damage, AoE and single target damage, together combined, they are a huge threat. So I think in arena or regular arena defense, you pretty much gotta have Bellion on everywhere now, because assuming people are gonna Pavel cleave your team with Commander Pavel now, yeah, I don't think your team's surviving. So okay, so again, let's keep talking about this. So when the fighting spirit is full, consumes all fighting spirit, activate Be Gone, and then Be Gone increases the attack of the caster for 2 turns, attacks all enemies by firing a gun before increasing combat readiness of the caster by 50%. Now what Pavel has here on the S2 was exactly the reason why I thought that Summer Break Charlotte, if you watch my Summer Break Charlotte initial thoughts video, I said that she's broken, right? Obviously, I admit I was completely wrong. Now, there is one caveat to that, because if you remember that video, I said if the enhanced dual attack, because I read it that way, okay, based on their description of enhanced dual attack, it felt like when after 4 turns of an ally goes, like if they use a skill, enhanced dual attack is done, like it'll go. The function of what we see with Commander Pavel was what I thought Summer Break Charlotte's enhanced dual attack passive was about. Because in that video I went on about like, oh, imagine setting up like, you know, 4, even though 4 ally turns is much more than 2 allies making critical hits, by the way. So this is even better. Like, even if the enhanced dual attack did function the way that this skill does, this is still better because you don't need 4 ally turns to go, and you're doing damage while setting him up. Whereas in Summer Break Charlotte's case, it was like you probably wanted some heroes with the you know, non-attack skill, being able to get another turn. So Sea Lilius, Ran, whatnot, and Peyra maybe. Right, so but this actually functions the way I thought it would, So with Summer Break Charlotte's case, if the enhanced dual attack had been initiated by any skill that happened on the ally's 4th turn, if she would do AoE, she would also CR boost because of her S1, and ideally she'd defense break. Now, Summer Break Charlotte ended up being just not usable, not really usable anywhere. She was really forced during the weeks of her release. But I believe that Commander Pavel's S2 completely would set the right expectation this time. This time, I believe no mistake. The only way that this kill can be bad is that if the damage mods are really low. Alright, if the damage mods are really low, and let's say because this is kind of like a setup AoE, and you're not burning souls for it. So if it's lower than Green Pavel's damage mod AoE, it's not too surprising. Okay, it wouldn't be too surprising because Green Pavel, to set up his AoE, ideally you want souls. If you don't want souls, it's okay. He's probably dead in the next turn though. But for him, it feels like his S2 for Green Pavel, that is, should just by default, based on the nature and the degree of how difficult it is to go off, probably going to be higher than Commander Pavel's S2. If Commander Pavel's S2 damage is the same as Green Pavel, this unit, at least this S2 skill, is insanely broken. I will say that I don't believe so. As I'm making this recording, the data mine has not been done yet, so the damage mods are not released. I will add them to the video description afterwards because I'm so hyped to make these videos that, you know, I'm obviously gonna be talking about it before it's even released. But you know, let me just like, you know, make sure that I'm really covered on both ends. If it's as high as Green Pavel or near, let's say even 10% less damage than Green Pavel's S2, this skill is absolutely bonkers, especially for aggro and cleave setups. Because realistically, what you really need, he does not gain Fighting Spirit on the S3, on the S1. He does not gain Fighting Spirit outside of your allies making critical hits. And after he does his first initial S2, it will take 5 more crits for him to get 100% again, and his own turn doesn't count. So realistically, in a cleave fight, you might be dead before the next time you can ever S2. Now that being said, he is a ranger, so he has access to Guiding Light. There may be certain situations where you could choose him in a more bruisery fight, but he's hidden the entire time. Okay, so that's assuming he's hidden the entire time, and you're just knocking out their, like, so I'm talking about standard to standard play. If you're protected by, let's say, like AROS or FCC, even better because you got barriers, so you can protect from the stealth being knocked out, or something like that. Along those lines, you could maybe potentially have him useful in a longer fight, but I highly doubt it. I think his lasting nature in terms of a standard fight would be as much as strays. Ideally, you are knocking out important components to the enemy's draft or enemy's team with strays already. Same thing with Commander Pavel, but he does give a better benefit because he increases the combat readiness of himself if the right conditions are met. As you see him be gone. Okay, so those are a couple things. Then obviously it is very important to note that the counter attacks, dual attacks, extra attack do not trigger it. So let's say you have like a shoe or like a counter, any type of counter hero on the line, like those critical hits will not gain his fighting spirit. So like I said, I think that that's why, like, right away, you know, with his kit, you know, aggro players, people who go like DN, ML Charles, maybe have an Edda in there, maybe a Green Sid in there, if Sid can, you know, crit twice or at least kill one target and gain another turn, crit again, you know, stuff like that, right? It sounds like there's quite a lot of options at the moment in the meta that people are already constantly running that can easily gain 2 turns, right? Or rather 2 critical hit turns. So ML Charles into an Op Sig, and so like Commander Pavel could be like 200 speed or less and being full damage, he would still be able to gain that CR boost on top of ML Charles' CR boost. You know, Light Dom comes into play, so if Light Dom maybe into Edda Soul Burn, 2 crits there, boom boom, you got him set off again. So I feel that even if he's not really strong for standard play, he is very strong for aggro play, which is like the medium it's like the medium difficulty in terms of gearing, right? Because like you don't need 300 speed openers for aggro, not all the time, even though now it's just getting easier and easier for people to do it because of heroes innately being able to do it, like Bunny Dom and DN having the speed buffs, the frenzy speed, and then DN having the EE speed and all that stuff. So like even if you don't have like Pavel at 300 speed, a Sid at 300 speed, it is still to some degree decently easy to get some kind of aggro comp going to set up Commander Pavel. That being the S2. So now this is a preview, and I wanted to show the damage on the S2 versus the S3 so we could get a glimpse of the damage amount. Now again, in these showcase videos I always have to say this because Epic 7 is not transparent on what is the gear like for ML Pavel, what is the gear like for the opponents he's running into, is the Proof of Valor Proctor on the Arabi, is that a plus 30 Proof of Valor? We can do our assumptions, but realistically the best way to do it is assume that both skills being showcased, the damage numbers, are being done to the same exact team with the same exact defensive gear. And then that way you can kind of have a comparison in terms of like how many times more does the S3 do to the S2 or whatnot. And as you can see here, because of like, Proof of Valor and then Hwayoung's 30% damage reduction from a crit, and maybe she had the barrier beforehand. Actually, I don't remember this. No, she didn't, because Athletica actually got the turn first, so her barrier was stripped. But the damage reduction there, and then Arabi, if it's on plus 30 Proof of Valor, Arabi usually has lower defense compared to Hwayoung, so like you can kind of see like the damage numbers look kind of legit. I don't know about the Bellion though. The Bellion looks squishy as heck. But who knows? Maybe like really high emphasis on the HP. Actually no, the Bellion just got half HP'd at 9,000. Yeah, whatever. You do your theory craft there. We don't know the numbers, so that doesn't matter. We just need the damage mods, all right? But to compare the numbers, right? So look at Arabi. So Arabi is going to be his target for the S3 in the Epic 7 preview video. That's almost 7,000 damage, okay? 7,000 damage, and then she self-healed back 1891. But that's of course with the attack buff, because remember how the S2 works, so he has an attack buff there. So he'll technically always attack buff when he generates that. I think the only way that it wouldn't happen, I guess, would be that you got unbuffable by something previously, and you would still be able to do the S2, you just won't get the attack buff, that's all. Yeah, so Commander Pavel skill 3 Die You Fly. So attacks the enemy with a pistol. When the enemy is not an elite or boss monster, damage sharing effects are ignored. I made my initial thoughts video for Edward Elric for the FMA collab, and I was saying that like you either need like damage share ignoring or defense pen right now, or really high damage multipliers on the S3 for like nukes to be like really good. Or maybe some kind of debuff, like Summer Break Charlotte's S3 is pretty good, 1.8 times mod with actually like AoE speed buff, and then she can also stun. Like this is like very, very strong, okay? So it has the same effect as Green Pavel, which is the ignore damage sharing part, but then it has something else too. It has with the caster attack is greater than the target's attack, penetrate the target's defense with a penetration rate increasing proportion to the difference up to a maximum of 70%. So penetrate target defense with a defense penetration up to 70% defense pen. Like that's I think that's pretty strong, right? Like if you set up, you do an AoE, like you most likely will have the AoE done. If you're drafting him, if you're using him, the AoE will go off. He has an attack buff. He does this, and assuming you already had the first turn for Commander Pavel to even get his turn, then your opponents would most likely not have an attack buff up, and so therefore you can assume with his high base attack and his imprint being attack, you can assume that you can almost always get the penetration rate at 70%. Now, if you're facing against someone like Senya or something, yeah, maybe you don't aim for her, right? Maybe you don't aim for her on the fact that you probably won't crit her, and then the fact that maybe you won't get the full defense pen. But that's what makes him like much more viable than someone like Strays right off the bat, right? So like it feels like he has like a lot of comparable heroes. Like he has Green Pavel to compare with, AoE on the S2 with attack buff, mind you, AoE damage, and then a defense. He has defense pen on the S3, so kind of like Strays, but it's not AoE and it's not limited to the highest HP, and also basing on the highest HP target, what their attack is like for Strays to get the 100% defense pen. You can pick the target for S3 here, so it's much more viable here. He has sort of like an ML Charles kind of vibe, where ML Charles gets a 50% CR boost if you proc his perception buff, but him, you just need someone to set up 2 crits and bam, he gets the turn. 50% CR boost is not a laughing matter at all, especially when you start off with most likely at the 50% CR bar. It's assuming that you're that slow too. So you could be higher there. So you just cut the turn. If you have what I was kind of already saying, like a DN with into like an Edda or a light dom into Edda, MO Charles, initiators, and then another middle DPS, like you're getting CR pushers everywhere. The showcase using Athletica as the example, you're getting CR pushers everywhere for him. So like even if you built him at like assuming you're using him for this specific method, you know, getting someone to do some damage and he's the cleanup, he's going to get the turn almost no matter what. Like I can't think of like the whole meta is all like CR boost, or killing a target with sachet Thanes on your ranger, and you're CR boosting the entire team. Like it's all that right now. Like if you're playing high speed games, it's all like that. So Commander Pavel, again, being really strong here. He has access to Guiding Light, so hard to be sniped out by something like A Sid, Green Sid. Access to Guiding Light, I think Guiding Light might be his go-to, especially like I said, if you can build him at like maybe let's say 200 speed, but just go full damage. Just go full damage, all out. Like 4.5k attack, 300 crit damage or higher. I think he's gonna do a lot of work. Now the only thing, like I said, is that with the damage mods, is it high enough? With the 70% defense pen, even though it does ignore damage sharing, so ignores Aureus and those type of effects, is the damage mod high enough? We'll have to see. But if it's equivalent to even Green Pavel's level, it's already amazing. So like I said, I think my direct comparison would be Green Pavel, even though they're functionally different in terms of the battlefield. But because both do very similar effects, I'm assuming his S3 multiplier is going to be lowered to compensate for the defense pen. Now, that being said, if we're using a 70% defense pen hero as a reference, Shu is almost the perfect reference to use. Shu is absolutely bonkers right now. I mean, 70% defense pen on her Fwoosh is freaking crazy. It wins games. Okay, even the most unlikely circumstances, she can solo games. So we roughly know what that type of damage does, right? So now just imagine him with attack buff, and attack buff actually benefiting his type of playstyle because he's not an HP scaling bruiser. He's not split or compromised in terms of the damage he's doing. So Shu getting a vigor buff or attack buff may increase her damage slightly. Him, ooh, it's gonna be very nasty. Now I'm gonna spend a bit of time talking about his S3 animation, because his S3 animation obviously has been the talk of the town. I myself am a big fan of it. Originally I was looking at this, I was thinking that, oh, why is Commander Pavel in this kind of like weird like mask thing, and how does he get like this crazy like, you know, like split form technique or something? But it turns out, of course, like that's his like army, so they do look very bland compared. So the animation starts off with like these guys coming in, cut, quick cuts. Enemy falls, and it looks like he's kind of injured, he's panting, and the camera kind of pans around so to show that, oh, he's surrounded by these guys. And from his perspective, in comes this kind of like character in the shadows, someone who is a lot more handsome. I was about to say like me, sorry, that's a reflex thing. Anyways, as the camera, or as the viewer eyes are blinking, that becomes the transition. So it's kind of cliche that you would see in like sometimes like a horror movie or something where like the audio is dimmed out and you just hear the heart beating and the breathing. It's like boom 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 boom. Even though they don't have the heartbeat, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to relive some movie magic, and it comes out with this, you know, final like in your face, like, you know, point blank shot. Boom, there is a muzzle flare, but I didn't capture that frame. I just didn't think that was that important. And it goes into this kind of like overlaid thing where it just kind of cracks like from your perspective, but it goes back to the game, which is I think it's the first time this is kind of applied. I can't think of another hero that has this kind of effect applied where there's another element on top of the game that transitions from the S3 animation itself. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, I don't believe I remember anything like that. Either way, the focus here is that it's 18,000 damage to a Proof of Valor A Ravi. Now, this does look like the exact same team that was kind of featured with the S2, right? So, like, if I'm gonna go back here, the HP looks to be where it's left off. You see the Hua-Young at half, Bellion just a bit over half, and then C. Lilius roughly about the same. So I believe that this was like one of the same takes. And so the damage to A. Ravi, she had, what was it? Well, I mean, I can't really tell there, but I mean, obviously less than 18,000, because unless that's a really cracked A. Ravi, that's almost like 30,000 HP A. Ravi, right? But it did 18,000 through Proof of Valor. Albeit there is no damage sharing here, so, but it doesn't matter since it ignores it. So the showcase is showcasing the damage with the defense pen, the potential of that, with a straight up, assuming a plus 30 Proof of Valor, straight up damage mitigation, a 30% damage well, no, it wouldn't be 30% right there, because you got Athletica going twice, and Athletica S3 actually into A. Ravi, so, and then on top of it, so Proof of Valor had been whittled down slightly, but 18,000 damage, in my opinion, on Proof of Valor, that's still very strong. And like you might be going with a more aggressive opener to do damage to trigger the ML Pavel and not Athletica. So there's that, and then we got the S1. How sloppy. Attacks the enemy with a gunblade with up to a 70%. So if you plus 3 this, 70% chance to decrease the attack for 1 turn. Now, if his S2 and S3 are freaking amazing, I won't even doubt that this skill is like a 0.9 attack scaling. Just like, why, right? Like, why even bother? Like, almost why even bother molding the S1? You know, my Green Pavel and my Ran don't even have their S1 molded. Or at least not max. It's just because, like, for me, like, some of the heroes I play with, like, I don't expect them to live past their S2, S3 turns. So I feel like in Commander Pavel's case as well, like if I'm gonna build him, if I'm gonna use him, I'm just gonna max S2, S3 for now, and don't even bother about the S1. Like I said, I think the S1 could only come into play if you have something that is way more bulky than you expected, but it just would be nice to have the attack down to maybe survive for another turn. Again, if presuming that if you are in Guiding Light, you'll be fine. Now, there obviously, whatever Green Pavel has in terms of the his flaws, so would Commander Pavel. But since Commander Pavel sort of like is second in terms of like he goes after your openers, there's a chance that his or the Green Pavel's full-on counters may not affect him the same way as Green Pavel. So for example, in the case of like Rimuru being chosen into Green Pavel, generally speaking, if Pavel goes S2, Rimuru just kills him straight off. So like, you know, I sometimes have when I'm cleaving with Pavel, someone drops Rimuru and there's no one else I can ban. Like I have to ban something else that's just more obvious ban than Rimuru. Then sometimes I don't soul burn Pavel, right? Because like, you know, you'll just get one shot by Rimuru's S2. In the case of Commander Pavel though, the likelihood of Rimuru going into him is very low likelihood because of, again, all of the heroes I said combined, they all would have already triggered Rimuru, so Rimuru would have actually no access to hitting Commander Pavel. Now the same thing with, let's say, something like Fire Muru, so Mercedes. Mercedes Magic for Friends, if it procs, it can proc onto Pavel, even though that he can't trigger a counter on his S2. She would like counter, right? But for Commander Pavel, assuming let's say you have a knight on your team or something like that, if she triggers like before, like with the setup hero, then Commander Pavel doesn't lose his attack buff. So Fire Maru can strip attack buff, right, on her S2 when she does Magic for Friends. She has a chance to dispel, but Commander Pavel could totally like ignore that unless she counters during his S2. So that's a bit more RNG, but like I said, it's not as upfront danger compared to something like Green Pavel. Whereas if Green Pavel is taking the lead, he has a lot more danger. And the same thing with FCC. FCC chosen into Pavel quite a bit as well. You know, people see Pavel, they put in FCC as a counter because it's really, really hard for Pavel to cut into FCC's Aureus, even though S3 is ignore share, damage share. The S2 usually only removes the barrier. So whatever FCC is protecting usually survives the S3 because you didn't really knock out any HP, again, depending on who the opponent is. In the Commander Pavel's case, he wouldn't have that struggle because, again, ideally you would have set up 2 critical hits for ML Pavel to go. So like maybe the barrier is fully removed, like in the case of Athletica, barrier is fully removed, or like you do enough damage with like Edda or something, barrier is totally gone, and then ML Pavel is open to do the damage. So in terms of ML Pavel's placement in a regular fight, I do believe that he has more to offer than Green Pavel. And again, like I said, it is ironic that Green Pavel ends up being one of the best prime openers for Commander Pavel himself. And if you imagine both of these two cleaving together in the same team, that is gonna be it's gonna be really crazy. Anyways, I'm very excited about ML Pavel. I think that even if he fails to win certain fights, I mean, he looks fantastic. Design wise, one of my favorite husbandos now. His S3 looks fantastic. I think his kit looks great. His kit is much more on par with what I thought that Summer Break Charlotte should have been, and I think he's just going to be very, very impressive. I just hope that Epic 7 does not, you know, release that Solitaria counter I was talking about at the beginning for the focus or for the fighting spirit based hero. Anyways, I'm going to end this for the video recording. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about ML Pavel? Are you going to be pulling for him? Will he fit in your playstyle? This, of course, opens up another conversation of just how aggro the meta is, and it doesn't seem that Epic 7 is slowing down anytime soon. So if you're a Wyvern farmer, you are still getting a lot of bang for buck for the amount of time you're spending Wyvern. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll end this here. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.